We start scanning underwater in a nice classic run. The sun is high and bright around noon, and its rays scatter off the decent amount of suspended particles which make the visibility in the water appear very cloudy, despite clarity being extremely high when viewed from above. This makes it very difficult to see far horizontally through the water. We start by observing some salmon fry darting about. Now we find several whitefish schooling together behind a small boulder where very fine sand has accumulated. I find usually in a river this is where whitefish prefer to be, in a relatively large space with very fine gravel or sand. They are well adapted bottom feeders and often shovel or sift through the silt in the riverbed, and obviously the finer the substrate, the easier it is for them to do so. We don't observe them shoveling in the sand here, but we do see that they are drifting side to side, with their mouths grabbing or feeding on something regularly. They seem to take interest in the camera and perhaps move over to investigate, but I think I moved too soon and spooked them. Quickly they move away and fade into the background. While filming, a person on the bank some 75 feet away starts talking to me. As I'm talking back, my voice is fairly loud and I can clearly hear my words as I am about 10 feet away from the camera. For editing purposes, I have toned it down a fair bit so you won't hear it as much, but here's a quick sample of the raw audio.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bugs are happy well. Tons of fry around and stuff like that.
It's pretty obvious that the human voice travels from the air into the water quite well, at least well enough for the camera to hear, and is far louder than we were maybe often led to believe, for not only can I hear my voice 10 feet away, I also pick up the voice of the man on the riverbank who is a solid 75 feet away and 10 feet out of the water. The commonly held rule is that sound does not travel from air to water very well, so you don't need to worry about fish hearing your voice when talking. Based on physics, sound doesn't pass from one medium to another easily, which is true. But I think based on this example, it's clear that although it may not travel efficiently into water, the human voice travels well enough that anything under the water can clearly hear it. I find what happens next rather interesting, especially because we will see it repeated again later. Despite the camera bouncing around in the current and me clearly talking without concern, a school of whitefish plus one smaller trout come right over to me, literally right at the camera, instead of moving further away, which is what I would have expected more so due to all the commotion I was causing. I find it rather interesting, and we'll come back to this topic again a little later in the video. But for now, the fish disappear upstream and we move on. We come across another group of whitefish further down the run. Again, they're favoring the areas of finer grained sands. Even while watching them, they are clearly grazing as they move. They are grabbing things that seem to be right around the bottom. I cannot tell what it is, but they are clearly checking out a lot of things with their mouth as they go by. Then they sort of disappear upstream. But now we come across a pair of larger trout, roughly in the 4 to 5 pound range. You can just see them on the right hand side in the faded background. Likely larger rainbows or perhaps steelhead, depending on your definition, based on their squarish tails. One suddenly gets spooked and darts forward. But notice as we watch the one that remains how different its behavior is from the whitefish. It sits more still, closer to the large rocks, and doesn't seem like it is very interested in testing everything it sees with its mouth. We see that the spooked trout returns back to its position again, and we can actually see that there are more large trout further in the background. They blend in very well to the background, and they are tough to see. But now we're going to move away and go a little bit further downstream. Now again, another person begins talking to me from the bank. I'm laughing and chatting away, pretty much ignoring the fact that I'm trying to make a video. Almost in response to my talking though, several whitefish approach the camera. Again, much closer than I would expect while being so intrusive into the domain. Even bouncing the camera around doesn't affect them. They almost seem to follow the camera and my voice as I go to remove the camera. If you recall, this is very similar to what we saw just earlier. Having moved upstream 25 feet, again I am talking and again fish approach. As they appear from the left side, you can see them come nearer and look at the camera. It doesn't seem to distract them from feeding. What I find interesting here is that in multiple situations, fish approached me and the camera while doing two things. While I'm talking away and holding a large black electronic item in their home waters. Except for in the very rare cases where I maybe lurched with the camera, the fish came closer rather than seeming to spook and move further away. That makes me want to ask, were the fish attracted to what I was doing, talking and holding something in the water, or is it just a coincidence? Let's consider a few things, and keep in mind this is based on a small sample. Can human voices outside of water be heard underwater? Yes. Sound waves don't go efficiently from air to water, but they certainly do. This video is an example. Does a voice cause vibrations in the water? We won't go into the full physics of it, but yes, sound waves above the water hitting the surface or being transmitted down a camera pole transfer energy to the water molecules, causing them to vibrate. Now, are fish attracted to vibrations? Yes, particularly through their lateral line, which is made up of numerous cilia or fine hairs, but also through other organs in their body as well. Is it conceivable then that fish may be drawn to a human voice, a sound causing vibrations? Could this mean it is truly possible to be a fish whisperer? My answer to that is a clear maybe. I think in certain situations when a fish is introduced to a new sound, a vibration, one that isn't abrupt or too sudden, and one that isn't recognized as a threat, fish may approach the vibration to determine if it is a food item or not. A smooth, steady sound like a rising and falling voice. And I hate to project any human trait into an animal, but that may create a curiosity in a fish to see if it can eat whatever the source is. Walking heavily through the water, dropping something in the water, or an overly loud motor close up, unlikely to work well. But now just because a fish may be attracted to vibration sound, does that mean they will bite more? Some tackle manufacturers swear by it, so perhaps. Generating positive interest from fish, if we can call it that, is certainly better than generating fear in fish. Fish that are comfortable and curious, and I'm using human labels again, will feed more given the chance. And in the case of this video, I believe we clearly saw that as a fish approached my position, unfazed by my noise and presence, they were going through the process of feeding, or at least sampling things with their mouth, which is as close to feeding as it suits me. Does that mean the next time you go to a river and see someone fishing, you should start yelling and dancing and then tell the angler that he can thank you afterwards? Well, definitely no. I think it's very situational specific, and I would use stealth as a first approach. But if you're unable to get attention from the fish with a subtle approach, then perhaps singing a little "here fishy fishy fishy" might be a good alternative. We have an old steelheader rule, and take it for what it's worth, but when you encounter a body water where you know there are fish, but you have done everything you seemingly can and not gotten a hit, toss a large rock into the water, let the water rest for 5 minutes, and then try fishing again. It doesn't always produce, but sometimes the extra stimulus changes the mood of the fish, yes, human labels again, and the fishing action suddenly picks up. Sometimes introducing change into the fish's world can work to your advantage, and when you're getting blanked anyways, what is there to lose? Now, what have we learned in this video? I actually fished this run the day before, catching 2 larger rainbows in the 4 to 5 pound range, about 7 smaller cutthroat, and about 12 whitefish. That seems to correspond to what we are seeing here. Right now, it's midday, around noon. Let's look at where the fish are sitting and if they are feeding, because that's the information that is most useful to us. Whitefish first. They mostly seem to favor the finer sediment on the bottom, and appear to be constantly moving and sampling things at or near the bottom, within inches. Their behavior is almost like slow-moving cattle grazing a field. They aren't highly active, racing around a run, chasing fry, or holding in a specific feeding lane, picking off food as it comes to them. No, they are slow and steady, moving and feeding constantly across the bottom. The trout, on the other hand, are far more quiet, at least at this time. Not clearly feeding, not going anywhere unless they get spooked. Just conserving energy. Trout aren't always like this, of course, but I do usually see this type of trend when trout and whitefish are together. When the trout are off, they are mostly quiet, sitting back, and most of the activity comes from the whitefish. But when the trout turn on, perhaps later in the evening when a decent hatch becomes more developed, then they start to dominate and you almost can't get a fly down to the whitefish because the trout become too active to let your fly get down past them. The trout become the active feeders and move to better feeding positions ahead of the whitefish. So how would I fish this? It's midday with no hatch going on, and I am expecting the trout to be holding steady pretty much in a sheltering lie with minimal enthusiasm to chase much. I expect to catch some, but not the domination of my catch. The whitefish aren't aggressive, but they are more active for sure. Since they are showing an inclination to sample anything that goes by, and they are moving in groups, I expect to catch a fair number of them. But I need to make sure that I get down to them, as they are not often moving any more than 6 inches off the bottom in a 4-foot deep run. If I don't get down to them, I might not even know they are there. The best success is going to be getting down deep, deeper than I normally would for trout, and feeling the bottom more. Now I would be looking for areas that have more of a finer grained substrate, sand, where I feel the whitefish will be. But I'll still regularly be searching for the trout, seeing if they are turning active so I can increase the number of fish I catch. Having multiple species active really gives you more chances to catch more fish. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.